Hi, everyone. I'm just going to wait for people to come on real quick. And I'm waiting for Britt Lefkoe to come on too. She's a fun story. She's actually in my house on the other side. And so yeah, I'll wait for her to request to join and then we'll get going. There we go. View request, go live, boom. All right. I'm so excited to see you all here. Welcome, welcome. If you didn't listen to the podcast episode, hi, Britt.
Hi.
I was just telling people if they haven't listened to the podcast with you, that's okay. Just post your questions here. I will post in my stories the podcast as well for people to listen to. But basically, let me quickly introduce Britt really fast. She is this incredible life/business coach. She works with like CEOs and like people that own like multi-million and billion-dollar companies. She is incredible. I have worked with coaches in the past and I've worked with other self-help people, but like the universe divinely guided me to Britt Lefkoe. And like I hired her to help Tristan in the last like month and a half of his life. And basically Britt, like I can't even put it in words what you did for Tristan, Britt, because you transformed him and you helped him get to a place of self-love. And he did so much healing in the 6 weeks that you guys worked together that like blew my mind. It completely blew my mind. And so you guys, Britt is here. I begged her, I said, please, like, people need to know this. People need to know what you did with Tristan. People need these tools. People need to figure this out because, you know, a lot of times anyways, I'm going to let you get into it and let you talk about it because like, I can't even put it to words. You're like this beautiful wordsmith and you're just so good at this. And so please tell people a little bit about who you are, the work you did with Tristan, and the Heal the Unhealable course that you are putting together and why I'm literally begging my audience to do this course, like literally begging them because it is so important. So welcome.
You got it. Thank you. Thank you so much. It was such an honor working with Tristan. I mean, it was such a beautiful, life-changing experience. So that's like a whole thing. But thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I'm so excited to have some time with you all just to answer questions, for you to get to know me better, especially if you're, you know, interested in joining the course to really get a sense of what is it and who's Britt and why do I want to do this. So like Jonique said, my name is Britt Lefkoe. I am a leadership development, business coach, personal development. My work really grew out of my dad's work, which was all about getting rid of limiting beliefs. And so I had this foundation my entire life to understand kind of the neuroscience of how our brain works, how we develop kind of our limitations from a mental and psychological perspective. And over time, I really started to develop kind of a lot of my own stuff, which was really fun. I've been doing this since I'm like, 12 years old. So it's been a lifetime. But what I really started to see is where are the patterns that keep people stuck? And not only how do those affect our life and our mind, but also how do those affect our body? And so I started to notice with so many different clients, different health things that were going on with them, and started to ask, like, where is this coming from? And so I've noticed over time these really, really deep patternings of these ways that actually illness have kind of been self-protective for us, and these ways that we play out these stories, not just in our mind, but also in our body. And so it was such a beautiful experience to walk Tristan through that. And I mean, like Jonique said, the majority of my clients, I really work with high achieving CEOs and entrepreneurs. I've done keynotes at Facebook and other large organizations. But my passion, right, is so much about working with people who are having a hard time, who are suffering, large groups of people. So for me, my one-on-one practice is more around kind of business and high achievement, but where so much of my heart is doing things like this and allowing people the opportunity to really to get insight that they don't know in order to heal their mind, to heal their body, to heal their life, to heal their spirit. So the Healing the Unhealable course is all about understanding and breaking down, why do we get sick, right? Why do we get sick? Why do we stay sick? Why do we get better and then get sick again? And what can I do to break the cycle?
Well, and as many of my followers know, in my order of healing, number one is mindset. And like, and everyone keeps bypassing mindset because that's actually a lot of
Yes.
work. And here's the thing about mindset too, is a lot of times people experience trauma, they experience really intense things, medical trauma even. How many people get a diagnosis of like Lyme or like anxiety or, you know, gut infections, and it creates all this trauma. And here's the thing is, when we are in a traumatic state, when we're in a state of sympathetic dominance, we're in this fight or flight, and it almost programs our brain to stay in that. You know, there's a saying in health circles, neurons that fire together wire together.
Yeah.
And when we're constantly firing these neurons for this stress state, and we're constantly in a trigger, is training our brain to stay in that state to keep us alive. And
Yeah.
but what Britt is going to be bringing to the table, and what like skills that I wish everyone knew, is that we need to actually reprogram our brains, and we need to like undo these wirings that we constantly do. But here's the thing, no one ever taught us growing up to do that. No one ever taught us to unpack old belief systems that don't work for us. No one taught us how to unpack trauma. No one taught us these skills that literally that these they never taught us how to undo really heavy things to put us back into this parasympathetic state of rest and like.
Right.
So what to help people not unpack beliefs, but to like reprogram their brains again.
Yes, yes. And I'm so happy you said that. Also, can you still hear me as well? I put the phone down and I was like, I hope the speaker's not coming as well. But
Perfect.
thank you. But yeah, so the Healing the Unhealable course is a four-part masterclass. And part 3 is all about pattern matching to a healing mindset instead of a mindset of being sick. It's exactly what you just said. So the third part of the masterclass is all about how our brain pattern matches, right? Our brain is a predictive engine. Imagine, right? Let's imagine we didn't pattern match. Pattern match is kind of my term. I made it up. That's what I call it. But so imagine you have no idea that anything is similar. You go to someone's house and there's a refrigerator and you're like, what is this? I've never seen this before. You would never function. But I can say, I've never seen your refrigerator, but I've seen a refrigerator, and I can kind of guess what might be inside. There's going to be food, right? We would never be able to function, right, if we didn't pattern match. How would we function if we couldn't find similarities? But the problem is we pattern match in this predictive way to things that don't actually belong together. We pattern match to fears of rejection. We pattern match to illness, right? So if you get a diagnosis, you're constantly looking for evidence of that diagnosis manifesting in your body. You're constantly looking for evidence of being sick. You're constantly looking for evidence of feeling weak, right? Or feeling like a burden, right? So whether it be the diagnosis itself, the symptoms, or some of the emotional baggage that comes along with that. So what would it be like to pattern match to what it feels like to be healthy, to what it feels like to be well, to what it feels like to be the person that you actually believe on some really core level that you can be? And that is such a profound shift to actually create in your mind.
And I give a great example of that. So I have been back in the clinic for the past 5 weeks, and it's really interesting because people literally come in when we're going over blood work and they are anticipating the worst, right? So they're pattern matching, you know, had this long health history of disease and dysfunction, and they are just waiting for me to like lay into tell them everything that's wrong, and foods that they need to cut out, and supplements, and this like really rigid like palettes, everything's terrible. And so what I can see is not only like physical stress and adrenal stress and all that, but I start off with like, look at all of these amazing things that are happening. So they're already coming in ready to pattern match towards disease and dysfunction, and I'm just waiting for her to tell me all about it. I also cannot tell you how many of my clients will ask me, do you see any signs of cancer here? You know, not a doctor, but we do have like, I feel like we have so much trauma around illness now because so many people are getting sick all the time. And that is like literally our worst nightmare, right? And our scary statistics out there, like 1 in 2 of us will get cancer at some point in our life. And like, and we all feel so helpless we all like, and then stuff like that sticks and it can't unstick. So
Yes.
all of this information that we're getting from our world and like filtering it to a way where we're not internalizing,
Yes.
right?
Yes, you are so on point, Jonique. It's so fun working with you because your view of health just aligns so well with mine. And so it's so exciting to talk to somebody who gets the importance of us taking accountability and ownership and feeling empowered in the context of our own bodies and our health and our wellness, and your support of this mindset piece. That the second part of the Healing the Unhealable masterclass, part 2, is creating an environment in your body that supports healing. And what we don't understand is, from a neurochemical perspective, the emotions and the thoughts that we have release chemicals in our body that literally support either a toxic environment, which can turn on and off different cells. So we look at cancer like it falls out of the sky, but what we don't realize is cancer thrives in an acidic environment, and thoughts literally produce chemicals in your body. Like, so fears and anxieties produce these toxic chemicals in our body that actually turn on more cancer cells. And what we don't understand, because no one teaches us, again, we go to school. I said this in the podcast. I said, we go to school and we learn whatever, the 22nd president of the United States and some physics equation. And no one teaches us what is happening in our body and how our thoughts produce different emotions, which produce different chemicals. And so it's just it's so amazing to me to have an opportunity to work with people and be like, wait, guys, like, this is what you were taught in school. And now this is what you actually needed to know all along. Like, this is what you should have been taught. So here's how to be empowered to take ownership over understanding your health, not from, you need to go to medical school and you need to understand everything, right? It's very different. It's, you need to understand your, like, the most basic principles of how to keep your body healthy, of how to create a healthy environment in your body that promotes healing in a way that you can actually do something. Because so much information, and this is one other thing, and I do want to open it up to questions and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to participate. But one of the things that I think is again, something that we're not taught, but our prefrontal cortex is about 5% of our brain power. And our prefrontal cortex is logic, reason, rationalization, willpower. About 95% of our brain power is our amygdala, right? Which is our emotional brain, our limbic brain, our fight, flight, freeze, right, is a part of that brain. So what's happening is, when we hear information that actually goes up against some of our subconscious limiting beliefs, it literally just bounces off, right? So we might understand in our 5% what we need, but all of that information is really only about 5%. So it's really getting into that subconscious brain, which is where the integration happens, which is where we actually start to see changes, right? So a lot of what happens is, we logically understand all this information and we think we need information. We don't actually need that much information. We need insight. We need something that's going to penetrate into our subconscious belief systems, make a transformational shift in the way we view ourselves, our body, our mind, and the world. And we think we need more.
Yeah.
But more just fits in the 5%. We don't need more. We need things that pierce us, right? Yeah. We need insights that shake us. We don't need more information. I think that's kind of where we get lost. That, like, again, like, you're not a doctor, right? That doctors will give you a lot of information. But a lot of the time, we don't need a lot of information, right? We just need something that empowers us, right, to be our own healer.
Love that. There's a question here that is so good, and I want to talk about it. Oh, you guys are so sweet. Thank you. I'm just gonna make me cry. Someone asked, how do I not?
Real life.
Someone said, how do
real life, real people. We drop our phones too.
My phone is like literally balancing on pillows and a book right now. So I don't have like a fancy setup thing at all. But someone said, how do I not internalize a lot of things? And like Britt was saying, like, these are skills that we should have been taught as a kid, that we should have been taught in school, to like really help us take in all of this really overwhelming information and like make it serve us. So like you were saying, and I like to use that example too. let's say an event happens, like it, and there's person A that witnessed that event and person B that witnessed that event. Person A can witness it as, oh my gosh, that was tragic, that was terrible, oh my gosh, that's my worst fear. And all of this stress, like, so a perception in the brain literally changes chemistry in your body
Yes.
or an inflammatory state. Whereas person B could be like, wow, that was so beautiful. Wow, I'm only going to take this part and this part of it. Wow, like, oh, cool. I really like that. And yeah, I can learn from this, right? And so literally one event, two different chemical outcomes, because now person B
Yes.
doesn't have that chemical cascade of inflammation because of the perception of her brain. And so what you're telling us is that these courses are going to teach us how to witness when we are pattern matching, because remember, you guys, like that 95%, that subconscious, that has kept us alive, right? You are alive, but you're in stress response, but you're still alive. Now we need to use the 5% to retrain that 95 to make us thrive, right? To no longer be in fight or flight, but to like be able to use skills and practice things daily that can help us go from, oh my gosh, this is all overwhelming, to actually, I have a skill set that can help me push out what doesn't serve me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love this question. Great question. Also, thank you to everyone who's posting questions. It just makes me so happy when people participate. So I'm just going to get into a little bit. Again, we're going to go way deeper in this in the masterclass, but how do we start to take accountability for the stories that we tell about the events we see, right? So again, I see somebody walking down the street and they kind of give me a look and I'm like, oh, how humiliating, right? Or see, people are awful, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever negative story I might tell, or like, gosh, what's wrong with them? They're so rude, right? So step one is become aware of the stories that we're telling, because you can tell when you have a negative feeling. So if you have a negative feeling, ask yourself, what story did I just tell? Right? And this is like the most basic. Again, we're going to go much deeper, but just for a basic, what story did I tell? Oh, I told a story that they're judging me. Cool. How did that story make me feel? Like crap. Cool. What story do I want to tell? This is the most basic. What story do I want to tell? Well, I want a story maybe that makes me feel compassion, right? It can say like, maybe they're having a bad day and they actually didn't even notice me. Have you ever been making a face and you're literally zoned out? You're not even looking at anybody, or you're like thinking about something, or you're going through something, and you could be staring at someone and they're like, Britt, and you're like, oh, sorry, whoa.
Yeah.
Right? So what if they literally didn't even notice you?
Right.
Right? Maybe that's a story I want to tell, right? Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're intimidated by me. Maybe I'm triggering them. So start to become aware of the stories you're telling and the stories that you want to tell. How do you want to feel? And what are some stories that you can tell that are consistent with that, right? So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is you can just neutralize it. Right. And the neutralizing comes from my dad, right? My dad created the neutralizing piece, and he would ask the question, what can you know for sure because of what happened? For sure, without a doubt, with certainty. And the answer is always nothing. You can never know anything with certainty. And so the neutralizing comes from saying, I can't actually read their mind, right? I think I can read their mind,
but I
I
can't
actually read their mind, right? I can't predict the future. I can't tell you about all people because of one person. I can't tell you about how things will be for all time, right? All I'm seeing is an event. And when you really get that the event doesn't tell you anything about all people, it doesn't tell you about you, it doesn't tell you about the future or the past, it will neutralize it. The second piece that I really love is creating a story that produces a positive feeling. It is so much fun to play with, right? And the better you get at it, the more able you become to communicate, right? If I get a response that I don't like, if I tell a story that like, I wonder what I'm triggering in them, or I wonder what's going on for them, and I come from a place of curiosity, sometimes I actually have some really meaningful conversations. I've had conversations. I'm actually going to tell a really brief story. I had a really vulnerable moment with somebody in my life who I met, a friend of a friend, And I just always felt really uncomfortable around her. And
Mhm.
I would kind of question things about myself, like things that I don't normally question. I noticed these insecurities, and I felt like I just felt kind of negatively about her, to be totally honest. And one day I sat down with her and I was like, I don't know why, but I just feel so uncomfortable around you. I was like, I judge myself and I get really insecure, and you've never done anything to me. Like, I don't know what it is, but I just wanted to share that with you and let you know, like, we don't have to be the closest of friends, but I just wanted to share that with you. And Johnny, she looked at me and she was like, I can't believe you're saying this. She was like, I have always been so intimidated by you. She's like, you're like successful and you work with all these high level people and you do these big talks, and like you're a hiker and you're always in the mountains doing these backpacking things. And she's like, and I just feel like I'm, like I'm just not like that. And I was like, you're blonde and skinny and gorgeous. And I was like, what do you know? And we ended
Mhm.
up having just the most beautiful conversation. And she told me some really personal things about kind of her childhood and growing up, and things about her family and her life that I didn't know. And her and I have gotten like so much closer. And every time I'm around her, like I just feel this almost like kind of protective, nature around her, and this intimacy. And I just want to show her how human I am, and that like it doesn't matter how many mountains I climb, like I still
Mhm.
have my stuff, right? Like I'm still on my journey and I'm still working on myself. But I
Yeah.
share that story because I think a lot of my journey has been, as I neutralize events, I really try to come with some curiosity, even around my body, right? And I actually have a client that this has been really big with, where she's had a lot of health issues over her life. It's kind of been the theme of her life. And one of the things that's really come up is when she's tired now, instead of it being a sign of, see, I'm sick, I've always been sick, I'm never going to be better, my body's a failure, my body's weak, of her being like, what is my body actually trying to tell me right now? She's like, am I overworking? Am I needing attention? Is there something that my body is trying to tell me? And so it's actually a sign of her body standing up for her, right? The way that we've reframed it is it's her body, which is so beautiful to me. It's her body being like, hey, like you
Mhm.
need to pay attention right now. And so she'll check in. And sometimes it's because there's plans that she has that she really doesn't want to go to, or she's an entrepreneur that she's overworking herself, right? And so instead of the story being, again, my body's not working, it's broken, I'm a failure, I'm weak, right? Her body being like, hey, pay attention.
Right.
You're moving too fast. I need you to pay attention. So like her body is literally her bodyguard. Like
Mhm.
her body is her warrior and her messenger and her divine angel, right? Coming down. So
Mhm.
there's just the idea with all of this is the more you play with it, the more you become empowered with curiosity to
Yeah.
create a story that actually gets you to where you want to go.
I love that. And that's something I've been practicing a lot lately too. Like, when, reframing, like, oh, it's my body working for me. I just did some stories yesterday where I spoke about weight gain can often be a protective mechanism to help the body store toxins and chemicals. And because that stuff in your bloodstream very damaging. And so like that is a reframe of, oh, my body's putting on weight because it's broken and it's damaged. It's like, actually, no, my body is putting on weight to protect me. And
Yeah.
so learning how to break out of these patterns of everything is against me and reframing it and recreating neural pathways that actually know it's for you and it's working in your favor, and look how it's working in your favor,
Yeah.
can be so empowering and can be such a changer. And so
Yeah.
many times, and back like in the clinic, that when I've been working with people, they are stuck on these medical merry-go-rounds, and even in the holistic circles too, like they have these like really dire health issues, and they go from doctor to doctor to doctor, and like $5,000 protocol to $4,000 protocol to 2,000, and they're just jumping around, and they come to me and I see all of these things, and I said, I cannot touch you until we do some brain healing, because you are in a trauma response and you are
Yeah.
patterned. Your body is currently patterned to not only like expect the worst, but to anticipate the worst. And
Yes.
so I cannot have your body, like your body cannot heal in a fight or flight state. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen. And
Yeah.
that fight or state is compounded with these belief systems and these thoughts and these traumas that reinforce it. So we got to unpack them. We got to heal it, and then repattern the brain to repattern the body. And then we do the nutrition and the supplements and the protocols. But if we're trying to jump and like throw our money at the supplements and the protocols without the brain rewiring, we're just going to stay on that medical merry-go-round all the time. And so that's like, my practice has changed a ton because I was just part of that medical merry-go-round of like, oh, let's do this Lyme protocol and let's do the stealth pathogen protocol and let's just keep doing it for months and months and months. And people would be so stressed and they would be so overwhelmed. And I realized that stress and that overwhelm was actually perpetuating their inflammation. And so anyways, I want to see some of these questions here. And is there anything else that you wanted to add to that? And do you want to go more into the other classes that are like the names of the classes? You spoke about class 1 and 3, I think.
Yeah, 2 and 3. Yeah, so it's actually really funny. So 2 things. The first one is, I remember when we did the podcast together, you said that Tristan had said, I'm an open book, share anything, which initially made me really uncomfortable, that I was like, I can't share like a client's personal things. But I do want to share just a really quick story about working with Tristan, and then I'll go through the 4 modules. So when I was working with Tristan, one of the reasons, Johnny, that I feel like you really brought me in was just to give him some ease, right? That you had called me and you had said the physical part, like we can deal with that, but I really need help with the mental piece. And so when I came in, one of the things that I did with him was he was having a lot of substance come up. He was coughing a lot. I mean, it was like every 2 seconds he was wheezing and he was coughing. And for him, it was producing a lot of anxiety attacks. He was terrified because he felt like he couldn't breathe. And so there was a lot of things that were producing anxiety, but that was a really big one. And the way that we were able to reframe the event, right, just like we were talking about, was that it was actually his body getting rid of things and clearing out, whether it be physical or even emotional and psychological, right? That he just needed to get energy out. He needed to get toxins out, whatever he was getting out. And he said that there was other things that were producing anxiety, but at least when I asked him, it was a trigger that every time that happened, to be like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so glad I'm getting this out of my body. Like, whoa, look at my body go. My body's amazing. Look at it go. So that he could just have that relief. And so I think that's even an example that even if we cough or again, we get tired or something happens, our go-to is, oh no, am I really sick? Oh, maybe I'm sick. Maybe I have this. Maybe my disease is back. Maybe I have another disease. Maybe I have cancer. Instead of saying my body's a self-regulating organism and it's actually doing exactly what it needs to be doing. It would be like getting a scab after a wound and being like, oh no, I have a new disease. My body's scabbing. Rather than saying, oh, cool, this is what happens after you bleed, right? You scab. So I just kind of wanted to share that as an example. So the 4 modules of the masterclass, the first one is, it's so funny. I'm like, I just said them and I blinked. Okay, so the way that the course is broken up, the first one, is our attachment to being sick. And that goes right into what you were just talking about, right? The mindset piece is important for so many reasons. But the first one is sometimes we don't realize how self-protective being sick is. And we talked about this a bit in the podcast, but you know, there's all sorts of reasons why we subconsciously believe that being sick serves us. Sometimes we have a sick family member and there's a subconscious loyalty. Sometimes it was the only time we got love and attention as a kid. For some of us, we have really strong perfectionist tendencies. That was mine.
And so to face, by the way, like trust me, when you do these, like when you do this coursework, we're going to be like coming up against a lot of beliefs and a lot of walls that have protected us but no longer serve us. So like we're going to get a little uncomfortable to get to the other side, because everything here right now, a lot of the time people will go back into victim and be like, are you telling me I created this? Oh, what a great way to wake up with shame in the morning. And it's like, actually, no, because when we can understand this and we can look at it from a different like angle, how empowering is it that we can change that narrative? But we first understand the narrative. See, victim puts you in a space of powerlessness. I had a friend tell me that when he actually realized that he was this powerful being, it scared him because that made him responsible for everything, right? And so how beautiful and daunting and how amazing and intimidating it is that
Yeah.
we have more power than we realize.
Yeah.
But have to like look at some really like uncomfortable walls that we've put up to protect ourselves, and that's okay because it will be
Yes.
done in a safe container and it will be done so lovingly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, exactly like you're saying, Janique, I mean, I just think it's such a beautiful point. Like, I think that when we step out of the victim, it's the first time that we are able to have like truly deep compassion for ourselves, because I think a lot of the time we think that being the victim is where we actually get the compassion, right? That's where people feel bad for us when we're a victim. But when we take ownership, we actually get to see these parts of ourselves, like our softness, like just
Yeah.
how badly we wanted to be loved, like
Mhm.
just how scared we are, just how deeply we wanted to protect our family or be perfect. It's like, if I really believe, and this is the story that I told in the podcast, right? For me, I was so unwilling to fail, like unwilling to fail, because I was so determined to be perfect. And if I really believed that the only way that I was allowed to not be perfect was to be sick, like I can't imagine a deeper compassion for myself, right? I think that was the first time I ever felt compassion for myself, when I realized that for me, being sick was like my safety net. It was like the only place I got to rest, because I was so determined to be perfect and to not fail. And so I think that kind of, you know, what you're saying is that we're going to face some stuff, but we are going to do it from a perspective where we have permission to have deep, unwavering love and compassion for ourselves, that there's no blame, there's no shame. It's like, way to go that
Mm-hmm.
you did, that you were willing to be sick. You were willing to be sick in order to not face something that felt so much worse. So it's actually like a really beautiful reframe. So that's the first part. The second part is all about how healing happens in a healthy environment. And that's talking about the neurochemicals that we produce in our body, that we release when we're having different thoughts, and how our thoughts create emotions, which change the environment in our body. And how, from looking almost kind of like from an epigenetic perspective, right? How to both create a different environment in your body and how to turn on and off certain genes that are leading to different disease in your body, right? All through mindset. The third one is all about pattern matching. So how we are maybe at the time pattern matching to being sick, and how we can shift our mind into pattern matching to being healed, being well, being healthy. And then the fourth one I am so excited for. That one is going to be where we do breakout groups. We're going to dive in, practical application. How does it apply to me? So the realizations that you're going to have are going to be really profound in the first 3 weeks. They're going to be really deep. But healing also happens in community, right? It happens when we're able to talk things out, when we're able to say, but what about this? But what about that? Like, this part really made sense, Britt. Like, it was really great. But what about this, right? And so that's when we'll be able to do some live Q&A. We're going to do small group work. And I think that's going to be a place where people are going to really be able to ground a lot of the realizations into their personal story with other people in a really safe community of people who are in it with you, right? We're not alone. And so often we feel like we're alone, and we're not, right? This entire community that you've built, Janique, is so beautiful. And I wanted to share this with you. A girlfriend of mine from high school reached out to me over Instagram and was like, oh my God, I saw your work with Janique. Like, thank you for everything you're doing. She's like, I had Graves, and Janique has been such an instrumental person in my healing process. And, you know, I just want to say thanks. So you really do have such a strong and beautiful community. So this is an opportunity for all of you guys to come together and to heal together with the support of not just me as your guide, and not just Janique as the mother of this tribe, right? But also with each other, with other people who are on a healing journey and doing the work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. And Britt, I want to give a really great example of like reframing everything, of how I've been able to transmute my symptoms into something that's empowering. And this is all that I've like learned from you and watching you with Tris. So Graves' disease, speaking of your friend with Graves' disease, and for those that don't know, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease 6 years ago. They wanted to put me on medications and all of this stuff. And I said, give me a few months, I'm going to heal it naturally. And I did. But during that time, there's something called thyroid storms, and these thyroid storms literally feel like a massive panic attack where your heart just doesn't stop speeding up and whatnot. And so I remember like just having to ride out the wave of my thyroid storms, which looking back, I'm like, that was very dangerous, and I can't believe I did that. But where I am right now, I haven't gotten tested for Graves' disease yet, but I keep having some symptoms of it. And I was at a breakfast with my kids at a Redmond, and we're sitting there, and I'm feeling what felt like a thyroid storm come up, right? Where it almost felt like a panic attack. And I was like, oh my gosh, am I gonna, like, I started going through the whole, like, I'm going to have to call 911. I'm going to end up on the floor, passed out. I need some orange juice. I'm going through like worst case scenario. And I said, no, Janique, you have skills. This is just energy that needs to be moved through you. Start moving. So instead of going down worst case scenario, which was making me feel worse and worse and worse, and was like reinforcing it, I got up and I started just like recycling things, and I'm like, just move it through. You just move it through. So I started walking circles in Redmond. People probably thought I was nuts, but here I am, like, it's just like walking circles, and I eventually calmed down, and it was so funny. But a follower actually ran into me and started asking me questions about certain products for her liver, and it was a complete beautiful, like, she was like, heaven sent. It was like this redirect of like literally just changing what I was focusing on, changed the chemistry in my body completely. So not only was I like, nope, this is just emotion that needs to move through you, start moving, but having someone distract me and like get me into a work mode and not like, oh gosh, I'm dying mode. Completely, like, I was fine. I was like fine in 5 minutes. And so these are like, again, like that's an extreme case, but using skills like this and other things that you're going to be talking about can literally be a game changer and empower you every day to do the work that serves your health and serves you and helps you repattern to healing and not gravitate, like be stuck in PTSD mode that makes us more and more sick.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. I was going to say, I want to say one quick thing, and then I would love, maybe we can do another question if there's more on the list.
Post questions, guys. Keep posting.
Yeah, keep posting questions. We love them. Also, I love seeing the hearts in the corner. I love seeing everyone loving it. It's so great. So one thing I was going to say is, I think one of the things that your story that you just shared really shows is sometimes we overlook the impact of emotions and stress, that we are going through so much more than we realize, right? We're so used to being taught to be fine. How are you? Fine. What? Like, how are you doing? Fine. Not actually like really stressed out, going through these hard things, struggling with this, struggling with that. Who in the world right now is not going through something, right? And we have times when things are good, but even when things are good, right? You're dealing with real life stuff. And so I think sometimes when we see symptoms come up, right, again, it's like, I knew I was sick. I knew I was ill. And nowhere in there do we say, I think I'm actually having emotions. Like, how often is symptoms in our body simply just unexpressed emotion? And I love this concept so much, that our emotions, again, they have energy, right? They have energy. So when they come out, right, either through words, we're expressing energy out of our mouth, right? Our thoughts, our words, crying, yelling, shaking, dancing, moving, we're getting it out. If it's not going out, where's it going? Shutting down. Mm-hmm. And now our body has to process all of this energy. So our body's on overdrive, and then we're like, what's wrong with my body? And it's like, it's actually just processing energy. So sometimes, whether it's journaling, dancing, talking to a friend, meditating, but just practicing getting energy out, speaking our mind, expressing our feelings, it is crazy how that alone changes our body. It's incredible. Yeah.
It does. Okay, I want to give one more example and then let's dive into these questions. People are asking, how do they sign up? If you go to gutsy.ch/healing the unhealable, I've put that in the comments here a few times. The course is 300. Just to give you guys a little bit of reference, Britt, I hope you don't mind me saying this.
No,
So
fine.
hire Britt as a coach for a month is between $4,000 to $6,000 a month. And this course is 300. Like, I can't believe how amazing it is. And like, and again, like Britt Lefkoe literally changed Tristan, like completely. Like I said at Tristan's life memorial thing, life celebration, for his funeral, I said the thing I was most proud of Tristan for was not that he was this incredible pianist. He was a straight A student and he got all these scholarships, and that he was able to jump through all of these hoops. But that at the end of his life, he learned to love himself. And that's because Britt helped him get there. Britt helped him reframe things. And it was the most important lessons he ever learned. And I only wish that we had learned this 5 years ago. I only wish that we had had this knowledge and this skill set. And like, I wish we had known all about the reframing of the mindset. I think it could have changed so much. And so, are we both teaching the class? No, I'm just going to be sitting there learning from Britt because she is the expert. I might just be interjecting like examples here and there when she allows me to, but it's all going to be like the magic of Britt Lefkoe. This is such a good question. How do you help talk your teen girls through this when school can be so toxic and soothe themselves with online content that makes it worse? So like going back to like, this is a skill set that I wish we taught our kids and our teenagers. So Britt, how do you want to answer that?
Yeah, no, I love that question. I mean, I think the first thing is once you learn it for yourself, it's so integrated and you understand it that it becomes really, really easy to support and facilitate others, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we don't understand it within ourselves, it's like we're always looking for what to say. And I think it's not about the what to say. It's really understanding how does my mind work and how does my body work. And once I really get that, now I can look at others, right? And that's like, for me, so much of my learning came from working with myself, working with clients, right? And so the more I understood it, now I'm able to look at somebody and be like, oh, well, of course, right? Working with one-on-one clients is so natural because it's like seeing the matrix. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Once you understand how our brain develops beliefs and how we see the world and how that creates an environment in our body and
Yep.
how we give meaning, it really is like seeing the matrix. So when you see your teenage daughter having these stresses, you'll be able to ask questions, even within yourself, of what is she actually doing?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening? It's like, oh, okay, she's giving meanings, right? She's creating stories about what's happening. And now I can ask questions to try to figure out what are the stories that she's telling herself, and then help her to reframe those stories in a way that's empowering to her, instead of saying you're telling stories, right? Which kind of like sometimes what we want to do, to be able to ask questions to say, okay, what are the stories that she's telling? And
Mm-hmm.
now when she shares with me those stories, to be able to validate, God, I totally see how that story makes sense. I think I actually probably created the same stories when I was little too. And then we
Right.
can relate, right? So if your daughter is telling a story that she's not good enough because, people at school are being mean, I'm sure you probably felt that way too. I know
Mm-hmm.
I felt that way, right? When the girls were mean to me at school, which they were, right? Wow, it's probably because I'm not good enough. And now looking back, I can see for myself, it had nothing to do with my good enoughness, right? People in school can be really mean. And a lot of the time it's because they have all sorts of insecurities that they project onto us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're not the smallest person, they're safe. If they're the biggest person, they're protected. But if they're seen as small or weak, then everybody can kind of come at them. They're leaving themselves vulnerable for attack. So now that I understand all of this, either I can share my story and be vulnerable and connect that way, or I could even ask questions like, do you think there's any other reasons why they might be acting that way? And you can kind of start a conversation and start an open dialogue, right? So it's not so much about reframing our kids' minds as it is opening dialogue to empower them to ask bigger questions, to ask different questions, to ask deeper questions. and to kind of have it all on the table. So the more we can have these really vulnerable, honest, open conversations where we're not above them, we don't have the answers, we're supporting them in kind of figuring it out themselves, and we're also sometimes sharing vulnerable things about our childhoods so that they can see that they're not alone. And I
Yes.
think that that is a huge way that we can support our kids. And I will say again, the more you get this, the easier it is to see it in everyone else. I am walking empathy. I'm
Yep.
walking empathy. People say all the time, they're like, I've never met somebody who's so non-judgmental. And I'm like,
Because
judgment doesn't make sense to me.
yeah.
I can't understand judgment. It doesn't make sense. Because if I understand at the level I do how the brain works, if somebody is being what some people would call loud or obnoxious, what I see is their desire for attention, which comes from a feeling of being unseen or not good enough or not worthwhile. It's like, how could I judge them for that? How could I not have compassion, right? If I see somebody that's cold, what I see underneath is that self-protective mechanism.
Yep.
How could I judge that, right? So again, the more you understand this, the less we judge people, the less we judge ourselves, and the more we come with curiosity to try to understand how are they protecting themselves through their behavior, and how can I support them in opening a dialogue to see things differently.
I love that. And this comment right here, she says, this is perfect. Opening up dialogue and being vulnerable and helping them figure it out is so much more impactful. And then this other person said, stories are based on our truth. If I change my story, what is true? Feels so scary. Yes, it was what the story that we based on truth is what we felt to be true at the time with the information that we had at the time. Right. And so understanding that we did the best we could with the information that we had, and now we get to reframe it and to change it to serve us is scary, but so empowering. Right.
Yeah.
And then you get these deeper layers of understanding for yourself, but for your kids and your teens and your loved ones. And like you said, it takes the judgment out, right? Instead of coming at someone being like, why are you getting on your phone? Blah, 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 blah. You're actually like slowing down and being like, hey, like, you know, like for instance, my daughter Satori, every time I'm giving, my kids have become very needy. And every time I give my son attention, she'll say, I feel unloved. You don't love me. And I try to frame that. And I know. And I say, oh, Satori, are you feeling left out right now? Yeah. Do you want some love and cuddles right now? Yeah. Okay. Do you think you can just ask me instead of saying, I feel unloved? Like, cause I will absolutely give you love. So just understand where she's coming from. It's not the words that she's saying. It's the feeling underneath it and the insecurity. And the fact that she's lost a parent and she's lost extra love and she just needs extra right now. Right. And so yeah, I think, what are some other questions? If I have me and my girls, can we just purchase the course once, or do we need to pay for each of us in the household? So I think you just need to purchase it once, right? And then they can all watch. What do you think, Britt?
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's great.
And then someone else said, is it a live class? It is. You will get access to the recordings shortly after. But if you can be there live, that would be amazing, but you don't have to. It doesn't work for everyone at that time. But it is on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. MDT. So Mountain Daylight Savings Time. Let's see. Anything else?
From me, any other questions? Do we have any more questions?
Yeah.
And again, ask away. Like, this is everyone's opportunity. So something I do a group call for a group of women who are basically in the process of rethinking their careers. They're either looking for a major promotion, they're looking to switch careers, switch industries, kind of find the right job for them. So I do this group call with them. And it's so funny, when I started, getting people to participate was like pulling teeth, right? It was so challenging. People just sit there. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this makes sense, right? Because stories, let's start here. Stories are either what I have to say isn't important, or other people have better questions than me, or I'm not going to say it right, whatever those stories are. And so I just want to encourage everybody to kind of notice in this moment if there are any stories coming up around asking questions, and to know that there's other stories we can tell. So if we're telling a story that what I have to say isn't important, well, what if your question not only is helpful for you because you matter and you're on this live because you want your questions answered, because you care, because this is your health, this is your body, this is your life. Is there anything more important than your life? Can you show up for your kids or your partner or your job if you're not here? This is your life.
Yeah.
So if your life is important, wouldn't that mean that your questions about your life, wouldn't those be important? And even, right, even when we look at our questions for ourselves, we're still missing the greater impact. That how many times does someone ask a question and you're like, oh, what a great question. I wish I had asked that question, right? It's so good. Or I'm so glad I can resonate with that. So just a reminder, I guess, for this live and even, in the course, that there'll be opportunities to do Q&A, and it's really easy to not ask questions. But I would just encourage you that if you want to change your stories, start here, right? We want to start with our health. We want to start where it matters. But if we don't do it here, it becomes harder and harder to do it where it matters. So this is a place to practice, right? It's an Instagram live. This is not like, there's no consequences, right? There's no like get an F on an exam and you fail and you get fired, right? So I want to encourage people that if you do have a question, there is no question that we're not happy to answer. I'm an open book, right? I think I always have been.
Someone asked here, what does the small group work entail? That kind of makes me nervous.
Cool. So I think that one thing I would say is, again, to remember the person you're going to be when you're at week 4 is different than the person you are right now. So as the person you are right now, without the information you have, the idea of sharing your confusion and your insecurities about your health, I think would be really scary. I think by the time you start to reframe these stories, and by the time you're given so many of these tools, you will have developed so much more strength in yourself, more self-love, more self-trust, more courage, more compassion for yourself, that I think it's actually going to feel really different. And I think very often when we imagine doing something in the future, we're imagining doing it as the person we are now, instead of the person we're going to be when we do it. And there's so much that we gain between now and then that will actually support us. And so I think more than the details, what I would rather say is you will be ready when you're there. And we will never force you to do anything that you don't feel comfortable doing, right? You're not going to have to get up and share in front of 100 people, right? Your deepest insecurities. Like, I'll do that for you, right? I'll be the one to call myself out in front of hundreds or thousands of people. I'll throw myself under the bus for you, right? Because for me, it's just like, it's human and it's real life. And so that's me. So you might share some stuff if you want to with a small group, but one, you never have to share. And 2, I think you'll be at a really different place by the time that happens than you are right now.
Yes, beautiful. And someone said, I have a disability and I have a hard time admitting it. I can't be around people because I get nervous. And so I don't say anything to that. And and one more here that says, let's answer that, or if you want to say anything about that, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for sharing that. Beautiful. Bravery, courage, high five, way to go. I'm here with you. I actually kind of want to normalize this, that it's really easy to feel like because we have a disability or because we are blank, that we are the ones with the social anxiety. And what I will actually say is most people have social anxiety. Most people are uncomfortable around other people. And a big part of that is because when we grow up, our survival depends upon our parents and not upon us, right? And so the way that we are accepted or rejected is actually tied to our safety. And so the safety center of our brain lights up when we feel like someone doesn't like us or is judging us, because if we perceive, we can look now and say, of course, my parents liked me, right? But as a kid, if we perceive that our parents are upset, even if it's not with us, our parents are upset, stressed, annoyed, right? We perceive that as unsafe. Right. And so through our lives, we're always trying to kind of manage how everyone else feels, because it's actually triggering the safety center in our brain to say, if someone seems off, or if someone doesn't like me, or if someone's judging me, I'm unsafe. And so with a disability, you're always kind of present that people might be judging me because of my disability, and being judged is unsafe. This is something that we can actually talk through a little bit in the course. But it makes sense, right? And so I just want you to know that you're not alone, that I think that yours is specific to your disability, but I can almost guarantee that I would say 90% of the people on this call have some level of social anxiety. And what I would just encourage for now is being judged is not dangerous. It seems dangerous, it feels dangerous, but your survival depends on one person and one person only. And right now, that's you, right? So even if you're judged, you can ask, so what? know
Mm-hmm.
what? Let them judge me.
Right.
They're the ones that have to sit with that energy. They're the ones that are processing their triggers and their stuff. That's unpleasant for them. Judging people doesn't feel good. So
Yeah.
they're in a state of something that doesn't feel good. But if I look inside with me, I'm good with me right now, period. Right?
Very-
What I want to encourage, right, is to one, in this moment, you're good. Someone judging you does not actually make you unsafe. It doesn't actually impact your life. You're still going to go home as you, and they're still going to go home as them. So
Mhm.
give that back to them. I see that you are having whatever go on in your brain and your trauma and your triggers and your stuff that's bringing up your stuff for you. That must be unpleasant. I'm sorry you have to have that, but I'm good.
I love that. We might have to wrap up soon because these lives can only be an hour, but there's one more question. Well, there's one here.
Yes, let's do it.
That these things have caused or disease and problems, but when we try to find them and work them out, they seem elusive. Have I just pushed them down so far that I can't unpack them? I'm a pretty positive person. Is it trauma denial?
I would say, I mean, I think that that is exactly what this course is all about. I think the best answer I can give for this is we're not trained to look for this stuff. So I guess the biggest thing is you're not alone. You're not alone. I think there's no reason why you should know where your stuff is coming from. Like there's no reason because you've never been taught. And so that's what this masterclass is all about. It's all about greater understanding. We're going to go deep on all of these different topics. And so I will help you. What I can say is I will help you. There's no reason that you should know how to do this. You were never taught. And I think that it makes sense.
Well, and I think everything that I've learned, yes, I will be saving this IGTV. When does the class begin? It's the second to last week in September. So in like 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
What I will say is like from learning like how you worked with Tristan and the wording that you did and from like being around you, I can't unsee the world any different now. Like you just see the stories that people carry around and you have so much compassion. And it's the same thing for yourself. Sometimes I get stuck in trauma and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's that story, there's this, there's that. Like I can't believe I pattern match to because I've been around cancer so much. Every time I get an ache or a pain, my brain immediately is like, is that pancreatic cancer? Is that this? Is that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, Shanique, calm down. And then, and then it's like, and then I reframe and it's like, no, it's probably just inflammation because you're stressed, because your vagus nerve is like misfiring right now, like, so like learning to un stories, you get to see that in everyone else's stories. And you can't help but have way more compassion for yourself and people around you. And it feels like a superpower. And even like with my clients, I hope there's coaches on here and nutritionists and people that are dealing with people that are going to be taking this course, because the way how I even counsel with my clients now is completely different to what I did a year ago. It's all about creating safety for them, creating a safe environment, letting them be heard, letting them see the stories and see the patterns, and then breaking those patterns through multiple things. I've told so many of my clients, I'm like, you need to do Britt's course and you need to do this and this and this in order to reframe and reset mindset so that we're not looking at an event from an inflammatory perspective. We're looking at it from this is me perspective. So that's it. Any last thought, any last things you want to say before we hang up? Because I think it's going to end like 60 seconds.
Yes. I think the biggest one is I can't wait to see you all there. Please do this for yourself if it feels right? If this resonates, go. If it's not you, great. But if it is, I'm here to support you. I'm so excited for this opportunity, and we're going to do some really, really amazing work together, some deep healing. And the goal is really for you to be the hero in your own healing journey, right? Like this course is all about you being able to finally be your own hero, right? This is not me being the hero. This is you being the hero. And I'm here to support you in that journey.
Exactly. You guys, thank you so much for being here, Britt. Thank you.
Thank you.
I cannot wait for this course, you guys. Like I said, I cannot beg people enough. I mean, obviously, if it's in flow, I cannot beg you enough to like learn these skills. Honestly, like I'm going to post in my stories. Well, I've already done it today. The order of healing, number one, is mindset. If we don't brainwash ourselves, we're going to these sick patterns over and over and over. So why wouldn't we want to reframe our world to be in a state that serves us and works for us, and we're not in victim all the time? Because when we stay stuck in victim and we're not willing to look at our shadow self and our shadow side and unpack that and see the light, because there's always light on the other side of the shadow, right? And if we're willing to go towards the light, then we're actually not willing to heal ourselves. Yeah. And again, because that's trauma, there's no judgment around that. It's just because there has been trauma and you are protecting yourself. So please know that there's so much grace for that protective mechanism. And are you ready to take the next step towards healing? So thanks, you guys.
Let's do it. Thanks, guys.
You're the best.
Bye. Thanks, honey.
We're actually doing this live in my house. She's just in another room.
I know. I'm so excited to come hug you. All right. Bye.